fans against the New York Jets. I think he's pretty satisfied with a scoreless tie right now.
They are satisfied with a scoreless tie, and this is a much better football team than a New York Jet football team, I can tell you that.
Something has to happen, though, at the quarterback position for the Raiders.
Well, the Raiders are going to get the ball in the first half, and obviously they want to score, but they've got to get the ball beyond midfield.
A scoreless affair so far at the vet. Let's go to Bob Costas now in New York and NFL Live.
Okay, Bob Costas back along with O.J. Simpson. We welcome those of you watching the games from Cincinnati and Philadelphia. Since we talked about Bo Jackson on the pregame show, what's your assessment of his first half? 9 carries unofficially for 24 yards.
Well, it's not good, obviously, but...
An excellent point.
I think what the Raiders have done, they've been saying so much that they want to run the football and throw the bomb, that Philly was well prepared for it. Philly's an excellent defensive team, some physical guys up front, and they've just been controlling the game with their defensive line. But I think Art Shell is happy at this point. He's playing against a team that many people thought would go to the Super Bowl. His team wasn't given much chance in the 0-0 at halftime, and I think he's pretty happy with that at this point.
A couple of missed field goals in the game. Raiders come in 3-3. Philadelphia 4-2. No score, as O.J. said, at the half. Cincinnati is in front of Indianapolis. They've got 3 Jim Breach field goals at Riverfront. The score is 9-3. Eric Dickerson has been held under 100 yards each of the last 4 games. We'll track his progress for you in the second half. Miami has the lead over Green Bay at Joe Robbie Stadium, 10-6. Marino with a 7-yard touchdown pass to Jim Jensen there. Buffalo leading the Jets late in the second quarter at Buffalo, 13-0, and it isn't even really that close. The Jet offense, which has been totally ineffective the last 3 weeks, has accounted for only 33 yards total to this point in the first half, 13-0 in favor of Buffalo. Houston with the lead on Pittsburgh, 17-zip. Moon has thrown 2 touchdown passes, one of 51 yards to Curtis Duncan, another a 3-yard flip to Alonzo Highsmith. 17-0 Houston, both clubs 3-3 in the AFC Central. And good news about Jerry Glanville. Believe it or not, he was bitten by a water moccasin. That's not the good news. The good news is he's going to be fine. He was walking outside his house with his son last night and somehow bitten by the poisonous snake, but doctors were able to treat it. He is on the sidelines and apparently fine. Minnesota playing at Detroit. Vikings 4-2, Lions 1-5. The Vikes lead 13-0 just before halftime. Herschel Walker a 1-yard run for their last score, his first TD as a Viking. Kansas City in a wide-open game at home against the 0-6 Cowboys, leading 21-14. A couple of touchdown runs by Christian Okoye, and Paul Palmer making his presence felt immediately for Dallas. They just acquired him. The former Chief goes 63 yards for a touchdown against his old mates. Tampa Bay leading at Washington. The score there is 7-5. The Tampa Bay touchdown on Ricky Reynolds' 33-yard return of a blocked punt early in the first quarter. Tampa Bay 7 and Washington 5 just before halftime. Now, when Denver plays in Seattle this afternoon, a familiar face will be back on their coaching staff. Mike Shanahan, fired 2 weeks ago in his second year as head coach of the Raiders, is once again the quarterback coach of the Broncos. Earlier today, I asked him how John Elway greeted him upon his return.
Great. I talked to John right after the, being released by the Raiders, and we talked during the week, and I really wanted to get his feelings before I did come back, and I thought it was something positive, so I did make the decision to come back to the Broncos.
How do you think you'll feel? And I realize it's a ways off, but in early December, the Broncos play at the Raiders. They've already played once at Mile High, but they've got the 1 game remaining in Los Angeles. Do you think that'll be a strange feeling for you when you walk into the Coliseum?
Bob, it will be really strange. Anytime that you're at a place for a year and a half like I was with the Raiders, and you develop relationships with players and coaches, it's always tough to go back and compete, especially under the circumstances.
Former Raider coach Mike Shannon now reunited with John Elway, Dan Reeves and company in Denver. Did I say Mike Shannon? Did I mean to say Mike Shanahan? You know, Mike Shannon used to play baseball for the Cardinals. Did you know that, O.J.? I'm just trying to make this as wide a program as possible, encompassing as many different subjects as possible. I'm not even sure what I said, but everybody knows that was Mike Shanahan, and everybody knows we'll be back with more halftime activities after this.
In the 80s, Honda was
Genberg, because it's the first time he's covered his former team, the 49ers. We'll talk with Walsh in just a moment, but first, watch along with us as we bring you this appreciation of his coaching career. Walsh's association with Bay Area football began on the coaching level at Stanford. After 2 highly successful seasons there, he got the long-awaited call to the pro ranks from the 49ers in 1979, and all his pent-up creativity burst forth on the NFL. While some coaches gave their plotting offenses as few as 20 plays, Walsh's game plans often included 120 pass plays alone. While some jittery coaches opened a big game by running off tackle, Walsh once started a playoff game with 325 hitch and lateral. His slow draw right with the wraparound handoff became a personal signature. Instead of just post corner, he designed a route for Dwight Clark that went post, corner, post. He named it the Shake, and it made defenders disappear. Invention came easily to Walsh. In the 1984 NFC Championship game, he was the first to use a lineman in the backfield, a move that inspired the refrigerator in Chicago a year later. In that same game, Walsh had Joe Montana and Freddie Solomon exchange positions so that Solomon, a college quarterback, could run the split T option. No doubt the best remembered single play of his 10 years was the catch by Dwight Clark that beat Dallas and propelled San Francisco to its first Super Bowl. What isn't so well remembered is the drive which resulted in the catch. A drive of 89 yards in 13 flawless plays, authored by Professor Walsh. Dallas, expecting pass, came with its 6 and 7 back defenses. Walsh countered with sweeps, knowing they took time off the clock, knowing that if his team made a mistake, he wouldn't get the ball back. In the tightest of spots, he had the right scheme and the guts to use it. Having earned control of the 49er organization, Walsh made his finest personnel move on April 30th, 1985, college draft day in the NFL. Talented wide receiver Jerry Rice of Mississippi Valley State was still available through 15 selections. Dallas, picking 17th, was ready to celebrate. The Cowboys lusted for Rice and knew that New England, choosing 16th, was no threat to take him. But Walsh traded up to get the player he wanted.
16th pick in the first round. Wide receiver Jerry Rice of Mississippi Valley.
Since then, Rice has been a Super Bowl MVP and is widely regarded as the finest receiver in the game. In searching for Walsh's greatest coaching moment, one is drawn not to the Super Bowls, but curiously to a Monday night during the 1987 Players' Strike. Walsh opened the second half against the Giants in the wishbone. Bill Parcells laughed, and Walsh shrugged as if to say, "What am I going to do? It's a strike game with replacement players." Each run brought the Giants' secondary forward, creeping ever closer to the line of scrimmage. Then, after 9 plays, all on the ground, the Giant corners and safeties peeking into his backfield, Walsh called the wishbone pass. And immediately you understood. He wasn't simply going to show a formation or run a single play for novelty's sake. He had a whole sequence in mind, a touchdown sequence. It was pure Walsh. Today he returns to Palo Alto, still sharing his unique perspective, this time from a different vantage point. And he joins us from the booth. Bill, now that your coaching career is over, apart from the personal achievements, the 3 Super Bowls and all the rest, what do you think your impact upon the game was?
Well, if there's any kind of a technical impact, I think it would be related to the passing game. I was just watching some of the monitors of some of the games being played and people running into the line of scrimmage for 1, 2, 3 yards, and we just, over a period of time, took an approach. We can throw a 5-yard pass a lot easier than we can run for 1 yard. So I guess a short ball-controlled kind of passing game was sort of our label.
How are you feeling these days in terms of the transition from the sideline up to the booth? You happy with it?
Well, I'll be happy as time passes. Dick Enberg is, I'm following him everywhere, Bob. He gets a cup of coffee, I get a cup of coffee, everywhere he goes. So he's helping me out immensely. It's been fun. It's been great to see the coaches, again, in a fraternal way, and the players. So that part of it I've truly enjoyed.
The criticisms and the occasional zingers come with the territory, whether it's as a coach or up in the broadcast booth even occasionally. But how have you reacted to remarks by some of your former players who said, in effect, great football mind, but we didn't like him as well as we might have liked somebody else?
Well, it was just a handful of guys, and they almost the guys you'd predict. I've spoken with the entire team individually. I've got great rapport with them. I feel very positive about my experience with the 49ers and my work with them. It's been tremendously gratifying. It really has.
That's Bill Walsh, almost by acclamation, the coach of the 80s. He'll be broadcasting the San Francisco game this afternoon against the New England Patriots, along with Dick Enberg, and we'll be back with more of our NFL Live halftime activities.
The Raiders of old, they have a big football team. The most important thing is now they have to prove it to themselves. They believe it. They've got to see it by beating Philadelphia.
Well, it could be tied at 3 right now. 2 missed field goals in the first 30 minutes of play. The first one by Luis Zendejas. He missed a 41-yard effort. As Telchik was really upset, he knew right away it wasn't going to make it. So it was wide left. And then Jeff Jager, he had a 28-yard shot. And after a 50-yarder last week, that was like a chip shot for him.